What's up, everybody? Kind of want to talk about the keyword situation in 40k right now with Codices, and it's only really kind of, I think, raised its head more obviously for people to look at with the second edition of the Space Marine Codex, 8th edition. I'm just going to refer to as the Space Marine Codex. I think this perhaps made people potentially more aware of the keyword kind of situation than before. And it's been something that's been a potential situation for people and players since 8th edition came out, because with 8th edition, GW really has cleaved a bit tighter to uh, keywords really being defining features for your data sheets and army building capability, with keywords either making or breaking potential choices. I do believe 7th edition had keywords in it, but it's really just there to be kind of an easy identifier. Like Deathwing have keyword Dark Angels. I forget if they do or not. I don't think they had keyword Deathwing. The point is, it was just a case of, oh, I'm looking to play a Dark Angels force. Let's see what is usable by Dark Angels. Well, here's the keywords for them. Okay. Or what is uniquely Dark Angels or something like that. But now it's more so, well, what can I take? Let's see. Look at the keyword. And in codices, like the Space Marine Codex and the Necron Codex, you have keyword chapter and keyword dynasty, and you would sub those out with the actual name of the force you're playing, just like other codices that do the same thing. And with the dynastic codes, this is all for Battleforge lists, mind you, but if you're going to run a Battleforge list and utilize the dynastic codes, the way that works and the way all chapter tactic like things, so let's be honest, dynastic codes are just Necron chapter tactics, and that's awesomely fine and great to have because we didn't have that before. So in all things like that, the way they've worked and the way the first edition Space Marine Codex for 8th edition worked was, you basically, if your force was not represented by a chapter tactic or a dynastic code in the codex, then you picked the most applicable one and used it. And that's how the dynastic codes still run. And that's fine. So that's how it was. Now, with successor tactics being kind of a revitalization of how Space Marine Codex was in 4th edition, we have keywords. The whole keyword kind of strictness, I use in quotations, not really strict, but the whole keyword kind of being more rigid now runs into a potential problem, because now we have a much more open-ended way of doing things with successor tactics. And the only reason we see it run into a potential problem and therefore potentially make more people aware of it is because of inheritors of the Primarch. It's not a bad ruling or it's a bad tactic, but it is a little bit clunky. Instead of going A to B, you go A to C to B. So it's a workaround, an official workaround of the rigid structure of keywords. Because this successor tactic, if you choose, you cannot select a second. I just bring it up because it says it in the rulings of it, because with successor tactics, normally you choose two. But if you choose Inheritors of the Primarch, you choose just this. Then you select one of the following chapters and use the chapter tactic of that chapter as listed. Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, White Scars, Raven Guards, Salamanders, and Iron Hands. This is because this is the way this successor tactic is set up. It's meant to have the chapter in question fight so closely to a particular first founding force, to their genetic lineage, that they are really no different outside of heraldry than of that force. Think Black Consuls, for example, with the Ultramarines. So it makes a lot of sense stylistically and lore-wise and everything for this to exist. At the same time, it presents a problem. But before I get to that, designer's note, as it states in the codex, if the chapter you play is a known successor of one of those six, then you must use that specific chapter tactic. Their case is Stormlords. They're known to be White Scar successors. That's what they're known as. So they must use the White Scars chapter tactics if you use Inheritors of the Primarch. Nothing wrong with that. That style, choice, and reasoning and semi-ruling makes perfect sense to me. I wouldn't even thought to question that or even go against it or anything like that, because it just makes too much sense. But nevertheless, they do spell it out for us. So, what's the big deal? Well, nothing here. The big deal, however, is what's not here, and that's Black Templars and Crimson Fists, because they are not first founding, they are second founding chapters. And therefore, technically, yes, they could have successors of their own, but we just kind of boil everything down to be what's the first founding force they descend from. But technically, their chapter tactics are not choosable outside of actually playing Black Templars or Crimson Fists. Now, that isn't what I necessarily jive with personally. I feel differently. I'll get to that towards the end of this. But being that the rules as written, rules lawyer potential out there for people who just love to do this, it can cause some friction. And I feel it causes friction unnecessarily. Now, there are people out there that I'm sure will say, this makes sense because if you could pick any of the 8, then why do successor tactics? And to that I say, that makes no sense. 6 of the 8 are choosable. 6/8, which you could round down, or simplify, or whatever. Round down, whatever, right? You can simplify that fraction. I just say it because it's funny. 6 of the 8 are choosable. It wouldn't kill us to choose the other 2. So, by the very fact, the very notion that the majority of actual chapter tactics in the Codex is choosable if you so desire, to me, removes that argument as have any real weight. Secondly, that's how things were prior to having successor tactics. The dynastic codes, as I think I said, I don't remember, specifically call out if you're playing a dynasty that isn't represented, you pick a specific dynastic code most applicable and you go with it. That's how Space Marines have done things since chapter tactics have come out. And Inheritors of the Primarch is not a requirement. If you're playing Stormlords, as they do the example of, you don't have to take Inheritors of the Primarch. But if you did, you would have to choose White Scars. So I feel this kind of specifically highlights the keyword situation. Because the book doesn't state pick most applicable. The book states this for the Space Marine Codex, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. If the chapter in question is not represented by a chapter tactic, then you must select 2 successor tactics to build your own. Because of that wording, more or less, it negates the capability of picking a chapter tactic. That's the whole reason why Inheritors of the Primarch exists. So I think either we retool Inheritors of the Primarch to be called something a bit different and allow for Crimson Fists and Black Templars to be choosable, or they axe Inheritors of the Primarch entirely, get rid of it, and reword the page prior, and have it say something more like this. If the chapter you're playing is not represented by a chapter tactic, then you can A, pick one that's most applicable and utilize that chapter tactic, or B, pick 2 successor tactics and build your own. I think that simple of a changing of the wording and sentence there would dispel the need for Inheritors of the Primarch and more or less silence a good portion of the whole keyword conundrum now. And again, perhaps I'm overstating something that's really not a big a deal, but the fact that it can potentially really has real potential to cause friction where otherwise there shouldn't be amongst players, that then there is an issue. And this is so much a reversal, more or less, of how things have been in every other edition prior, as well as the beginnings of 8th edition, where you just do what counts as. GW used to really, be advocates of counts as setups. And it feels like they're not deliberately pulling back from that, but it feels like in a way to streamline the whole process of learning the game and playing the game to an extent, or at least learning and prepping for playing a game, building an army list, learning the rules. It feels like in an effort to make it as streamlined and as player friendly as possible to learn, pick up, and understand, they are almost accidentally taking a step back from their stance of what I think really is a big draw of 40k, which is the open-ended freedom to represent stuff how you want. Right now, obviously, I'm not saying you're not going to pick a Space Marine force, build it, and say it's going to count as a Necron dynasty. No, that makes no sense. But GW has always been in the corner of, here's official forces of a particular codex. If you don't like them, That's cool. Build your own. Build your own, convert them up, buy more kits, buy our paints, do what you got to do to do what you got to do, right? And make up your force. Totally okay with that. Here's lore reasons why, yada, yada, yada. And then just have it fit in with the rulings by counting as whatever is in the book. They were very friendly towards that. And it's not that they're unfriendly. It just, to it now, it just feels like in an effort, like I said, to make things so much more cut and dry and easy to follow without much cause for concern. That style of playing seems to have been put up against the ropes a little bit. I don't think it'll ever go away. And if anything, we may see some type of errata in the future to allow either errata in the future or something in whatever supplemental book they're in to allow for it. But right now, those are two chapter tactics that technically have no way of being chosen unless you play that particular force. So my stance has always been, since I played 40k, that as long as you are, representing your force, quote unquote, legally or correctly, aka if you're playing Tyranids, you're playing Tyranids and you're not utilizing Eldar models, right? You're not taking an Eldar force having counts as Tyranids, but if you're playing your force from its respectful codex, then you're fine, right? If you want to do Lamenters from the Blood Angels and have Dante lead them as it counts as, go for it. If you want to play a counts as Black Templar's force, but you have it done up as your own custom built chapter, that's awesome. What are they called? And let's check out the color scheme, but that's cool. No issues there. Go for it, whether it's special characters, whether it's a chapter tactic or whatever. Go for it, have fun, and let's see the creativity. That's my viewpoint, and I'll kind of leave it at this. The reason my viewpoint is this way is because of two reasons. A, it's your force, meaning you put the time, money, and effort to collect and learn the game. Collect your force, build and paint it, and then learn the game to play it. You did all that with your force like I did with my force. So who am I to say you can't do that with your respective codex, because technically there's no way to take it. And I have that stance because of B. The rules don't become more potent and unbalanced if they're used by a palette swapped force. Meaning this: if instead of playing Black Templars and you are utilizing the black armor with the white shoulder pad inset color scheme, if instead you're playing the Magma Templars and your color scheme is red and orange, it doesn't all of a sudden make the Black Templars chapter tactic super effective twice over and make you unstoppable and overpowered. It still works the same way. The Magma Templars, hypothetical force, and the Black Templars as a force, if they have the same exact army list, the only difference is the color palette change and symbols, then they have the same exact potential in a game. And it's not unbalanced or unfair in anybody's favor. So, because of that nature of the game, and because you spent your hard-earned time and money to get involved with the hobby, who am I to say you can't run them as Black Templars because only Black Templars can take their chapter tactic? I just feel that I don't have that authority, and I don't think anybody really should. But because the way the codex is written, then now you would technically have to get permission in casual gaming or through tournaments, especially in tournaments and leagues. That causes unnecessary friction, right? And friction is not good for a machine. You want to have things be as frictionless as possible. Unless you're trying to stop, then you want friction. But who's trying to stop? Have fun, right? I don't think so. Anyways, share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks very much for sticking through this kind of random rant and ramble. I don't think people should worry, but because of ways things are written, you might encounter that rules lawyer. And if you do encounter somebody who says that's not Black Templars, you didn't paint out Black Templars, you can't use the Black Templars chapter tactic or the Crimson Fist chapter tactic, then you know what? Just saying it now, that's not somebody you want to play against anyway. Anyways, until next time, take it easy.